the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. Practical Psychology for Today. Featuring the works of Idries Shah, voiced by David Ault. Welcome to the Idries Shah Foundation podcast. In this edition of the podcast, we will hear selections from Destination Mecca by Idries Shah. This audio has been made available by the Idries Shah Foundation. Chapter 3. Contraband Runner. It was a moonless night as we hove to outside the Spanish 3-mile limit. Lights out, cigarettes doused, we waited, nerves really keyed up to the limit. Would it be another case of dumping £20,000 worth of American cigarettes, a wild dash in the converted naval launch from the German-built Spanish E-boats, or yet another triumphant bonus night with a week's shore leave and a spending spree in the glittering shops of Tangier? I was the only passenger aboard. Although I was not paid and did not regard myself as a smuggler in any sense of the word, I was fully covered by smuggler's insurance, with compensation clauses and free legal aid should anything happen. The free traders found that Canary Islands trips were the easiest, as they explained to me during the idle moment of our voyages. At Las Palmas, they said, it was merely a matter of landing the stuff and collecting the money. Nobody seemed to know where the customs men were, not that they really wanted to know. The snag here was that the profits were small, what economists call marginal. Pay for the crew was less, too, but a lazy tour out to the Canaries was considered an essential break for the overtaxed nerves of the contrabandists, now and then. Several one-night dashes on the bread-and-butter run across the straits from North Africa to Spain had taught me a good deal about such things as security, engine repairs, even navigation. I certainly knew now just how good and how bad my nerves were. Daily, immense cargoes of the world's goods, nylons, cigarettes, penicillin, even dope, poured in and out of the Tangier customs sheds. Anyone with the right contacts and enough nerve and capital, a fast surplus naval vessel, register her as a yacht and go into business. Recently, however, as I learned, things had become a little more difficult. The official part of the business, handled by agents, which can mean anything and generally means stooges for the pseudonymous bosses, was easy enough. Nobody could stop you from sailing out of the harbour at 10 at night, loaded to the gunwales with luxury goods which officially neither Spain, France, nor Italy could afford to import. The cigarettes, for example, will have cost the smugglers about 6p for 20. They would sell over the water wholesale for anything up to 1 and 6p, or its equivalent in whatever currency the smuggler demands. The 6p buying price includes customs duty, where applicable, import charges and other expenses, but all cargoes being in transit are out of bond and duty-free. Naturally, the ship's papers show your destination to be Samoa or anywhere you care to mention while they are being forged. It is usual, of course, to make the destination appear plausible, and on the return to have documents indicating correct delivery, just in case of enquiries. Where the real snag comes in is the fact that informers paid by rival gangs, or the police of various countries, keep a very wary eye on cargoes. This means that from the moment the craft is loaded at Tangier, the prevention authorities of at least 3 Mediterranean nations will probably have been alerted, and the boat may be challenged somewhere at sea. If this snooping were inevitably successful, of course, nary a cargo could get through unintercepted. In actual fact, during the autumn season, as many as 20 outfits may be regularly plying back and forth under cover of darkness. How is this managed? It was frequently alleged to me that the Spanish authorities could be squared. Spurning that unsupported allegation as unworthy of a great Iberian nation, we arrive at the second and third possibilities. Either the agent from whom one works can re-bribe the spy, or, which was the general procedure, the boat may be loaded at dead of night, far from any inhabited place. Real, old-fashioned, freebooting stuff, this, and not one of the red-blooded men of the new Spanish Main would dream of thinking of himself as anything even faintly resembling a crook. The Spanish customs, as already noted, were said not to accept the 3-mile limit. My skipper, in common with most of his contemporaries, thought this extremely unsporting. Several boats, he said, had been blown out of the water for failing to stop and account for themselves when they were found cruising by night 4 or 5 miles from Spain. This generally happened when they were overloaded and could thus not achieve the necessary evasive action. It was believed that those boats which carried reasonably light cargoes, with engines in good order, were never caught. A fair-mile type of craft can make enough speed to show a clean pair of heels to even E-boats, providing that she is light or can be unloaded double-quick. For this reason, cargoes were sometimes carried on deck, roped and tarpaulined, every man drilled in his split-second emergency role. "It is no fun at the actual moment of crisis," Aubrey told me, "but there is something exquisite about the memory. Just try hurling overboard 850 cases of cigarettes in a matter of a couple of minutes and zigzagging frenziedly the while to escape the merciless Spanish searchlights if you want to know what it is to be good and scared." On this particular night, the captain got away with it. Promptly at 3 a.m., a small Spanish fishing boat loomed out of the blackness. Signal lights blinked cautiously. All was well. This was not to be a run-in, but a transshipment. Far easier, though less well paid. Legally, according to our advice, we were completely covered, for we were operating outside the internationally agreed limit. The Spanish agent, looking like a film version of a highly successful Yankee businessman, came on board. The American skipper of our outfit, who said that he had forgotten to return to his army unit when it was stationed in Italy, pulled a half banknote out of his pocket. Another half was produced by the agent. They fitted, numbers were the same. We all smiled. No trap here, unless... A horrible moment came when a light aeroplane equipped with searchlights buzzed around. A coast guard. The two parties on our craft glared at one another, mutually suspecting. But we bore no lights, and neither did the Spanish fishermen. The enemy, ignorant and unheeding of our blasphemous curses, slipped back towards the coast of Spain. We went below, and I counted out the money. $66,000 in American notes. On deck, the crew, casual and efficient through months of experience, transferred the cases, nearly 9,000 cartons of 200 cigarettes each, into the rowboats of the Spanish ship. Within an amazingly short time, 3 faint whistle blasts told us that the job was done. By the next afternoon, taking a wide detour and heading back from an entirely different direction, we were in Tangier again. A total stranger stopped me in the street that evening and muttered in a broad Scottish accent that he heard that I had been with the Bluebonnets over the border. I knew that there was probably not a soul in the smuggling fraternity who had not heard of the successful run. At one time, the muscling in of American gangsters brought out a particularly ugly side of Tangier life. At first, there had been something of the old-fashioned grace of gentlemen adventurers about the smuggling community. Then, out of the blue, the Italian Americans in their expensive boats started a kidnapping and hijacking regime which forced smaller operators entirely out of the game. The loss of a single cargo, if one is making a way up the steep scale of ploughed back and reploughed profits, can mean complete financial ruin. One load lost and several months may have to go by before really economic returns are again reached. Chased by the Italian customs not far from Genoa, our skipper once dumped overboard more than £20,000 worth of smokes and penicillin. In order to make up for these losses, he had to plough back every penny of profit from 6 pot-boiling trips to the Canaries. The biggest figures behind smuggling in Tangier are, as I have said, anonymous. In some cases, this means that their connection with smuggling cannot be proved. Their organization is composed of a series of broken links, with nobody knowing more than is good for him. As a general rule, skippers pick their own crews and give their final operational orders 3 or 4 hours before loading time. When the crew reports, the goods are already on the quay awaiting checking and stowing, with shipment papers in order, or at least watertight. The ambition of every skipper is to become his own boss, to have his own boat, and eventually to settle down to a less harrowing life. Information that I collected in Tangier, however, indicated that only about 1 in 5 of the inexperienced venturers who simply bought a boat and headed for the smuggler's paradise actually succeeded. The rest either were drowned, disappeared, died in gang fights when the American gangsters were still there, were captured by the customs of one country or another, or lost their cargoes early on and had to start all over again from the beginning. It takes a good deal of self-discipline and luck to be a successful smuggler. The effect of vast amounts of easy money on most of the smugglers who did strike lucky seemed almost to unhinge them. They were like men from another world. Our own captain was one who had once brought out his own boat and had lost the cargo on an overloaded run, and was now working for the boss. He had signed on at Villefranche on the French Riviera as a deckhand on a British manned craft. Rumour had it that he had worked his way up to captain aboard one of those perhaps mythical boats, said to have been manned by a band of British ex-Wrens. In any case, he had made dozens of trips, had been inside a Spanish jail, and had had his cargo confiscated several times. He was now climbing the weary stairway to all or nothing at all. I had collected my information, but would have tarried a little longer in the fabulous international city, had I not been aching to get moving eastwards. What made me make tracks for Gibraltar in a hurry and away from it all was the rumour that the captain had contracted for a dope-running trip to Genoa. Like most people, I am opposed to the drug traffic on almost every ground that I can think of. In all fairness to the smugglers, it must be said that hardly any of them would handle dope. As I write this, my thoughts wander to the silent, plush blue of a moonless Mediterranean night. How many skippers that I know, and their crews, are scanning the darkness, engines off, waiting for a burst of machine gun fire, perhaps? Or are they all already in jail? Gibraltar was the quickest way out. Even here, though, there was unease and a sense of anticlimax. I had hoped to travel eventually to Arabia via French Morocco and Libya. Diverted by visa trouble, I decided to make for Marseille to catch a messageries ship for Alexandria. Smuggler's Prospectus. This document, better than anything I could write, gives the picture of the Mediterranean contrabandiers and their ways. It was prepared by a group of operators who had decided to return to Europe in an attempt to buy their own boat and thus cash in on the huge profits of the Tangier run. Mediterranean trade, Tangier to Spain. Summary. Subject of proposition: cargoes of American cigarettes carried by sea from Tangier to Spain. Profits to be expected. On the basis of actual runs now in regular operation, private cargoes, owned by the owners of boats, about £15,000 per run, in US dollar freight, carried on behalf of combines already working there, upwards of £2,000 per run. Calculated on a basis of 1,000 cases of cigarettes per cargo. Culpability in British law, nil. No British law is infringed. There is no infraction either of international law in the case of cargoes being transshipped outside the 3-mile territorial limit bordering Spain. Tangier implications, none. It is permitted to import cigarettes into Tangier and export them seawards via private transport. Investment needed. To buy a suitable ex-naval ship, with a speed of 30 knots plus, about £2,500. Alternatively, to buy a suitable MFV or HDML in this country and take it out to Tangier, £1,500. Some MFVs might be available at about £1,000. Buying a share in an existing ship, now being fitted out for operations in England, about £1,000. This latter figure represents a participation equal to about 1/3 of the profits. Further details will be found below. Brief summary of the position and implications up to date. A very large market exists for American-made cigarettes in France, Spain, Canary Islands, and Italy. Currency restrictions, dollar shortage, make this demand insatiable by orthodox methods. The recent war has developed among the local people a taste for American cigarettes, and in addition, their own government monopoly brands are in most cases greatly inferior. There is also the large market for foreigners travelling through and resident in Mediterranean lands. At present, legally only token imports are permitted in the above-mentioned territories. A notable exception to this import ban is Tangier, the international zone on the Moroccan coastline, just across the straits from Spain and Gibraltar. This is a free currency area, meaning that goods can be imported into Tangier and paid for in US dollars, and exported from there to any country by almost any means. Modus operandi. 1. Types of operation. Two main types of trading are to be distinguished: synchronized deliveries arranged by Tangier agents, combines, who give yacht owners their cargoes and instructions in Tangier, and arrange for the ship to be met by fishing vessels outside the 3-mile limit. And secondly, the independent yachtsmen who buy their own cargoes and make their own selling arrangements for delivery and selling. This report is mainly concerned with the former type of operation. 2. Typical operations. In a typical transaction, the procedure is generally as follows. The captain or owner of the boat arrives in Tangier. It is essential that he be known and trusted locally. He makes contact with the combines through one or other of their agents. A cargo is arranged by this agent. When the agent has satisfied himself that the ship is of the kind which is used by his combine, they have inexplicable caprices about this sort of thing and have to make sure that certain kinds of engines are fitted, and so on, the cargo is ordered by the agent and delivered aboard the ship. The cargo may be large or small. In the case of a new ship, agents generally send only a few hundred cases, and also a representative on board, just to see how the thing is settling down to work. Everything is very highly organized. The ship sets sail under cover of darkness on moonless nights to make its rendezvous on the other side. The skipper has received half his freight charges in advance and gets the balance on delivery in cash. He is paid US $6 or more per case, or a total of £2,000. Out of this, the crew of 3 are paid £20 a week on average, and a bonus of over £10 for each cargo delivered. Fuel costs 1 shilling 4p per gallon, diesel oil, and about 30 gallons are used in the crossing. Frequency of operations. It is possible to carry out 3 to 4 crossings per week. Delivery to the Canaries, Italy, etc. is paid for at a higher rate. It is possible to insure against mishaps, engine faults, or loss of cargo or boat. Personnel. The present team proposing this operation consists of the following: 1 captain with a 2-year record of successful deliveries without mishap, and 3 assistants, one of whom is skilled in navigation, another in engines, and the third as a general hand plus navigator. All personnel can double as deckhands and steersmen. This team is referred to as the group. They propose starting as soon as humanly possible, and to that end need a boat. They have all the experience and skills, but lack capital. The group proposes that an investor or a group of investors purchase a boat of suitable type as their contribution and register it as a yacht. The group undertakes to sail the boat to Tangier, to make all arrangements, and to begin operations. Profits will be divided, either as follows or after consultation. No salaries to be paid, entire project to be profit-sharing. Boat to be in the name of the owners or a nominee or the group. This is immaterial, but the group wishes to exclude the possibility of suspicion that they will themselves dispose of the boat, or otherwise take advantage of the factual possession of it. Profits to be calculated as net profits, and 75% for the investors, with the balance of 25% to the group. Fund to be set up for purchase of additional boat. Actual plan of operations. Initially, until there is sufficient liquid capital available for the group to run their own cargoes, owned by themselves, the boat will transport cigarettes for one of the combines, in the form of freight. This will be about 1,000 cases at £2 per case of 10,000 cigarettes, or a gross return of £2,000 per trip. Reckoning on 4 trips a week, the profits will work out at £8,000 per week, less fuel, etc. Within a few weeks, however, the group would intimate to the combine's agents that the capacity available for freight had diminished, and less freight and more cargoes of the group's own cigarettes would be transported, bought directly from the importers in Tangier and sold through the group's own agents in Spain. Working on the above figures, it will be seen that a private cargo, i.e. one owned by the group, being worth up to £15,000, the gross profits could be as high as £15,000 a week. Cigarettes sold in this way are therefore a much better investment than the freight flat rate of £2 per case. This is an exact parallel of operations which have been carried out by British and American crews from 1946 until today, and the overall picture has changed little during that time. The entire Riviera and North African coastline from Casablanca to Villefranche is dotted with retired British and American and other nationals who have retired from the smuggling trade after making £100,000 or more. This is one reason for the continual demand for good boats and trustworthy crews. Retirements are very common. Being plain businessmen, the combines cannot bind the smuggling crews to them legally or otherwise after they have made their pile. Urgency of immediate action. Apart from the natural desire to commence operations soon, in order that the profits should come in as soon as possible, there are other reasons for speed. Among them may be mentioned that September to October are the times when smuggling always receives an added impetus in the Mediterranean. It is necessary to make arrangements with the agents so that they will know what cargo capacity one is providing, and indeed that our group will be in operation at all. Secondly, if we are to participate in the boat which is actually in process of being bought now, we must act quickly. This will limit our investment and get us into operation at the earliest possible date. Most important, there are rumors that a movement may be afoot soon to seek the United States government's action to limit cigarette exports to Tangier. If this were to happen, the entire smuggling trade would be wiped out at a blow. So we must work fast. We may have only about 3 months in which to harvest the situation. Note, the group is prepared to negotiate on the basis of this report. It is emphasized that the group does not seek any liquid capital to be paid in cash to them. They are prepared to take any investors to the spot in Tangier or Spain to satisfy themselves that this is a serious and practicable business. This podcast is copyright 2018, the Idries Shah Foundation.